Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Week 1 recap as the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Green Bay Packers 34-29 in Sao Paulo, Brazil on Friday night. And the Philadelphia Eagles are the number one seed in the NFC officially as of right now, as they have the best record in the NFC right now. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, bud?
I mean, it feels good to start the season with a W. I predicted a loss. I mean, whatever it is, what it is. If, as we say every year, I am happy to be wrong 17 times if we're going to go 17-0. If I predict a loss every week. So I'm okay with that. I mean, we're going to dive into it. It wasn't the prettiest game, but it's game one of the season. And as usual, Philly fans and media are way overreacting to 1 week, but so be it. Let's get it started.
Yeah, the Eagles are now 4-0 in Week 1 games under Nick Sirianni. But before we dive into the game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Greenhour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHero54. Follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. And then if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on the game, your player of the game, you're good, you're bad, you're ugly in the game. One of the segments that we typically do on our recap shows, which we can't really do today because there's only been 2 NFL games played, is our unheralded player of the week. So we will have to try to fit that into our review show, or preview show, next week of the Eagles versus Falcons game. We want to give. I mean, I have mine already. I could give you it now. You probably may know who I would pick. But we will allow the other 14 games to be played over the next couple of days before we do our unheralded player of the week. It's one of my favorite segments just because like anybody could pick, the big time guys. We could always pick AJ Brown. We could pick Saquon Barkley, but no, like they're all good. They're all great. And pick somebody that nobody really talks about. So Connor, the Eagles won 34-29. The start of the game for the offense was not good. Jalen Hurts with an ugly interception, and then the defense doing a good job forcing a field goal, and then Cam Jurgens with a early snap, and Jalen Hurts not ready for it. The Packers getting it in great field position inside the 20, if I'm not mistaken. And the defense doing a great job again, forcing a field goal. And when it was only 6-0 instead of 14-0, that's when I kind of felt good about the Eagles' chances early on. I know the offense wasn't looking good. They weren't moving the ball. Rust, obviously not playing in the preseason, could have played a factor. The first play of the game for the Eagles, Saquon slipped on that crappy field, so apparently the Eagles ground crew and the Packers ground crew got together and picked the field. And apparently it's the same grass that's used at the Link and Lambeau, but that looked more like the Lambeau field than Lincoln Financial Field. And then I saw JJ Watt put something out that like the soccer stadiums aren't, or like soccer grass, I should say, isn't intended for big guys like NFL guys to be running on it for, long periods of time. And that's why it gets messed up so bad. And that's the big issue with international fields and games. And then Howard Eskin, of course, comes out and says, it's because it was hot and humid and misty and the field got slick. That's why. But, I think I would trust JJ Watt over Howard Eskin, but, that's just me. But your initial thoughts, Connor, especially in that first quarter, and how the defense played and how the offense came out struggling.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said it's the first game of the season. Jordan Love saw more snaps than almost all of our starting offensive players combined in the preseason. So at the end of the day, it's definitely just getting some rust off. And I mean, starting with the W, that's big, especially given the conditions that you were traveling. You're up against a pretty good Green Bay Packers team, a team that is fairly highly regarded throughout rankings and throughout the preseason NFL stuff. So I mean, things got a lot more interesting with Jordan Love now down for 2 to 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. But I mean, a win's a win. Jalen Hurts. I mean, we're going to dive into a lot of this. Saquon Barkley, I mean, there's a lot of people who are out there that just got silenced. There was a lot of people saying overrated, overpaid, not going to do anything, not going to be a game changer. Without Saquon Barkley, the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, it's hard to say. Who knows? Maybe if we have DeAndre Swift in the mix, maybe DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, and Will Shipley backfield does something, similar to Saquon Barkley. But Saquon Barkley was an absolute game changer, difference maker in this game. And there's a lot of people who are eating what they originally said about the deal. And there's some Giants fans who are hurting a bit today because they wish they had Barkley. And I get it's one game, and we're going to overreact and we're going to underreact and just plain react to things. But that's a massive debut for Saquon Barkley. And the only thing that people go on about that is questionable about Saquon Barkley is the health. If he can stay healthy and he can be kept healthy, he's not overpaid. He's not overrated. He's none of the things that people say. In my opinion, he's none of the things I said. I thought he was really good in New York. I thought he was one of the best running backs. He just got some freak bad luck with injuries and got put on a team where he was literally 75% of the team's offense.
Yeah, and if you look at the weapons that the Eagles have compared to the Giants, like AJ Brown had over 100 yards receiving. Devontae was very, very clutch.
84 yards.
Yeah, in clutch in the second half on that last drive where they killed pretty much like 7 minutes, 6-7 minutes at the end. Dallas Goedert, who he only had 4 catches, but like he's still involved. And then obviously Jalen Hurts, Jahan Dotson got targeted maybe once, and like you'd have to think that he's going to get more involved in the offense as he becomes more comfortable within the offense. But yeah, like if you're going to stack the box and put in the box, okay, good luck covering AJ Brown and Devontae Smith one-on-one. If you're going to double AJ Brown, and I've talked about this time and time again, if you're going to double AJ Brown and or Devontae Smith and leave a light box, then you hand it off to Saquon. And you could see like Saquon, he like looked happy yesterday playing. Like he ran through some huge holes yesterday. His 11-yard touchdown run, like you could drive a Mack truck through that hole. And it was a nice jump cut that he had, or stutter step that he had to score that touchdown. And that was the second one. The wheel route touchdown that or the throwback touchdown, excuse me, from Hurts to Saquon. That was a hell of a throw and then a hell of a catch, and great job by Saquon to get both feet in bounds. You could just see the difference he's going to make in this offense. And when he went down at the end of the first half, and he came out, and I'm not saying he was hurt, but he came out a little, I don't want to say gimpy. He may have hurt his hand or something. I was really upset that we saw Gainwell out there and in my head, I'm like, every time it's a 2-minute drive, it's always freaking Gainwell. But let's think about it. Saquon played 80% of the snaps yesterday. So we know that, like you said, if he's healthy, he's going to be on the football field and he's going to carry he had 26 carries, if I'm not mistaken, or 26 touches, whatever it was. Like he touched the ball a lot. And I think that's like, if you look at the contract, it's a 3-year contract on paper, but it's probably more of a 1 to 2 year contract. So the Eagles are going to ride them and the Eagles are going to use them. And if the wheels fall off, fine, you're done after a year or two anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I said when I shared the snap counts on our Twitter earlier today. We saw Gainwell, I think 15% of snaps, but if it wasn't for Saquon Barkley coming up a little gingerly after that play to end the half, it's not even, he's closer to probably playing 90% of snaps offensively. And I think that's what we're going to see on a weekly basis. I think as long as he's healthy, we're going to see him out there 85, 90, 95% of offensive plays. Or unless it's a blowout as well. Those are the only ways that you're going to see this be, where Saquon Barkley won't see that much. 24 carries is a lot of carries. I don't expect to see that many carries from Saquon Barkley on a weekly basis. It all depends on how games are going. But ultimately, I mean, one of the biggest things that I said in the pregame show was, how are you going to cover all these different weapons? And the Green Bay Packers showed with a fairly good defense, it's going to be hard to do. They gave up 5 and 119 and 1 to AJ Brown, 7 and 84 to Devontae, 4 and 31 to Dallas Goedert, 24 carries for 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not to mention the 2 receptions for 23 yards and a touchdown for Saquon Barkley. It's going to be really hard for teams to deal with this.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's Eagles are going to have, you would think, one of the best offenses in the league. And like we could talk about the Kellen Moore effect and Jalen Hurts' numbers when they used the motion was fantastic. He was really good. Both of his interceptions were, I think, on non-motion plays. And again, they were really bad interceptions. The one that Xavier McKinney picked off, throwing down the middle of the field, not the best throw. And then the other one throwing across his body into the end zone, looking for AJ Brown or Jair Alexander came away with it. Again, Jalen has to be smarter than that. He cannot be turning the football over. So that's going to be something that he needs to reel in. Like we have to be smart with the football. You know, the Eagles are going to win more games than they lose this year, but a lot of the losses, like unexpected losses, could come from the Eagles beating themselves. Because I don't know if the Eagles, looking at their schedule, it's a tough schedule, but like they're going to be more talented than most teams. Let's be honest. They are going to be more talented than most teams. You know, looking at the stats, again, Green Bay is, well, before the Jordan Love injury, and again, he should only be out, potentially be out 2 to 4 weeks. Like, these are two of the top tier teams in the NFC. You know, it's going to be the Eagles. It's going to be the Packers, potentially. I mean, it could be the Niners. I mean, it's going to be the Niners. It's going to be the Lions. They should be could be the top 4 teams in the NFC. And obviously, you know, Dallas, Tampa, teams like that, maybe Atlanta bringing up the rear. But like you're looking at the stats, the total yards, the Eagles had 410s, the Packers had 414. Passing yards, 266 for the Eagles, 251 for the Packers. Both teams ran the ball really well. The Packers averaged over 7 yards per play, and they rushed for 163 yards while the Eagles rushed for 144. The Eagles averaged over 5.5 yards per play. You know, the Eagles won the first. They had more first downs. Were a little bit better on third down. Excuse me. They were 4-14. The Packers were 3-13. The Eagles controlled the time of possession by about 5.5 minutes. Penalties came at inopportune times. The Eagles had 7 for 57, while the Packers had 10 for 71. And the Eagles turned the ball over 3 times. They won the game with a -2 turnover differential. So that is something that they are going to have to fix. Another thing, they got next to no pressure from their defensive line. Like, I heard Bryce Huff's name not once. Nolan Smith's name not once. Jalen Carter, heard his name. Barely heard Josh Sweat's name. Jordan Davis did a good job against the run in the first half. I don't know if he got tired in the second half, but that's when the Packers started gashing the Eagles. You know, Josh Jacobs had a really good game running. The new running back for the Packers. But I don't know, like, they're going to have to figure something out because you're going to have to get pressure on quarterback. Kirk Cousins coming up, he gets rid of the ball quick. Like, if you can't get pressure on him, they got weapons in the Falcons, and they'll be able to expose. There were Jaden Reed was running wide open for the Packers all night. They're going to have to figure that out. Quinyon Mitchell played really well. I know I'm jumping all over the place, Connor, so stop me if you want to jump in. But like Quinyon Mitchell didn't really look like a rookie out there. He had 1 PI, but he looked really, really good out there. Slay didn't look too bad. Gardner Johnson was okay. He had that on the Jaden Reed 70-yard touchdown. He slipped on the field. Running as fast as he was running. You know, it's tough to make that play. And I think the 2 best players on defense, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean. And I'm kind of like, I'm shocked to say it because I didn't expect much from Zach Bond, but here's a hint for you, or here's a spoiler alert for my unheralded player of the week. It's Zach Bond. he was really good.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, to touch on the Jalen Hurts point, he definitely has to be better. Like there's a lot, he's catching a lot of flack, you know, all over social media, some fans, a little bit of overreaction, but to the same point, you can't make by yourself 4 turnovers. I think it was 3 of them were lost. One of the fumbles was recovered by the Eagles. You can't continue you can't continue to make those mistakes like Jalen Hurts makes. Let's blame it on Russ. Let's blame it on the field, and we can look past it. Like I said, I think there is a little bit of overreaction happening, But I mean, it is something to be concerned about because we've seen Jalen Hurts do this. His ability to turn over a ball is just as costly as his ability to be clutch when it matters the most. So either can be situations that arise and can be very, you know, they get your heart racing, but he's got to figure out how to stop putting the ball on the ground. And this year started out the same way as last year. The turnovers continue to happen for Jalen Hurts, and he has to figure out how to stop having those turnovers happen or make better decisions. Because, like you said, both those interceptions just sounded like he was just trying to force something where it just wasn't meant to be. When you're throwing off balance like that, you're just asking for bad things. Throwing off balance and kind of across the field, you're always asking for bad things. And then the first interception, we'll chalk it up to rust. I'm going to chalk it up to rust because it was one of like the first 5 passes of the game.
No,
But
he threw. No, that was a bad.
it was
throw.
a bad pass. It was a bad pass. He threw over the
can't make
middle.
that throw.
He threw over the middle, and there was more green jerseys there. And this is Green Bay Packer green jerseys over the middle than there was anybody for the Philadelphia Eagles. It was just a bad decision by him on that one as well. So I'll chalk some of this up to the fact that it was the start of the season and he hasn't seen the field a whole lot, and just goes to show for those that were counting the no interceptions in training camp, those don't matter. Yeah, just saying, for those ones who truly track it and feel that it is a worthwhile stat to track, it doesn't matter. And this game proved it because he went out there and threw 2 very, very bad interceptions. So hopefully,
and he could have thrown 2 more.
Yeah, there's definitely situations where he could have thrown more. Michael says I give Jalen a grade of a C, but overall team C plus or B. I mean, yeah, I mean it's a tough grade system, Michael. I mean, I think like C plus for the offense, B for the defense, maybe even better for the defense. We could have been behind way more at the beginning of this game. This first quarter could have turned out a lot worse than 6 points. It could have easily been 14 points. But it wasn't, thanks to that defense. And I mean, I know that the biggest concern obviously is going to stem from the pass rush. This field was not conducive to a offensive line or defensive line to do much of anything on. So
reminded me of the Super Bowl field.
Exactly. So I'm going to kind of wait and see when we get back next Monday and play a game on American soil, on American football field, and see what happens. Because whenever teams travel, it just seems to be a mess. These fields, they rush them. They put them out like a week before the game, or they start working on them a week before the game. And then it seems like any humidity or rain or anything just throws the whole thing for a whirl. So we'll see what happens there. Michael's comment, well, Howie needs to make the call and get Reddick back. Reddick's heels are dug in. Howie ain't paying. I don't know if anybody's paying. Like the report today was that Reddick was willing to stand on his own and completely potentially ruin his career. Essentially, the report essentially said he was willing to throw his career away to make sure he gets the extension he thinks he deserves.
I also think the locker room issues that happened last year may have had something to do with Reddick. And you know, I can't believe the Jets still traded for him without getting anything done, thinking that he would show up. Like, good for Reddick for standing on his ground. Like, if he was going to play for $14 million, he would have probably rather just stay in Philly because he's from here. You know, who wants to go play for a crappy franchise like the Jets anyway? But yeah, you know, they do need to upgrade the pass rush. I just don't know if Reddick's the guy.
I agree. I don't think that Reddick's the answer either. And I mean, Bryce Huff, I mean, I'm gonna give it a little bit of time, you know, new scheme. I mean, everybody's working in the same new scheme and stuff, new team, everything. I'm gonna give it a little bit of time and not overreact too much. But yeah, there's a lot of things to improve on. But I mean, that for most guys, they didn't play more than like 20, 25 snaps in the preseason. So it's gonna take some time and some warming up. Michael also mentions the Eagles have to show up third down conversions. They were 4 of 14. They were really bad. So were the Green Bay Packers. They were 3 of 11 on third down conversions. It was just an all around. When push came to shove, a lot of both teams struggled in certain situations, and it was all about who could get the score, who could get the all important score or force that all important turnover. And it looks like the Eagles were able to be that team that made the difference.
Yeah, and I had talked about the secondary, and Avonte Maddox definitely did not look good in the secondary. As Michael says, Devontae Maddox cannot be the slot corner anymore. The Eagles need to use Ringo and Mitchell. I do think when Isaiah Rodgers is healthy, and it was a shocker again, nobody thought he was going to be out with a hand injury, but he was out. I think, if they do that, Rodgers will go to the outside and Mitchell will go into the slot. But then that when they're in dime, but when they're in regular, nickel, they're with just two DBs, Mitchell will be on the outside with Slay. But yeah, you'll start seeing that better once they get healthy. Once Rodgers comes back, and I thought Ringo should have played more. I don't think he played much on the defensive side, which is kind of a shocker. So I would like to see Ringo out there a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of thought that Ringo was going to be the guy that was going to go out there and play with the injury, but it looks like they kicked Kenyon Mitchell outside and they gave Avonte Maddox a lot of play. Here, Michael says also Avonte Maddox cannot be the slot corner anymore. The Eagles need to use Ringo and Mitchell. I mean, I would tend to agree. It's good to see that Mitchell can handle his own on the outside, and he proved like he's got swagger, he's got attitude, he's got like a lot of things that we like to see in Philadelphia. So that's a major plus. But yeah, Avonte Maddox playing like 85% of snaps. That can't continue to happen. If Rodgers is healthy, put Rodgers outside or inside, put Mitchell outside or inside, whatever you think the best combination is. And definitely go with that, because Maddox is a guy who you're going to want to use more. He's made of glass. You don't want to use him 80%, 90% of the time, because injury will definitely happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But there's a lot to learn from this game, and I know that I hope that the Eagles are going to learn from it and get better. But there was some positives, there was some negatives. But I mean, I guess one of the major pluses of this all is Saquon Barkley addition is great. The extensions to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith look like they're going to be absolute bargain discounts by the end of the season if it continues like it did this week.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that didn't really work well, the tush push. I think the Eagles were one of 3 on it. They did it. They actually did a hard count, which Jason Kelce. It was weird seeing Jason Kelce tweet during the game. By the way, I would much rather seen him out there playing. But yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on with the tush push. We all thought it was Jason, or excuse me, we all thought it was Jalen Hurts, but maybe it's Jason Kelce. Mekhi Becton also didn't do that bad at right guard. I'm not saying he was perfect, but he for somebody that never played guard in an NFL game before, he wasn't bad. And he might be the worst. Him or Jahan Dotson are the worst starters on offense if you think about it. But that's setting a high bar too, just because look at the offense that we have. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, Mailata, Dickerson. If you had to pick a worst one, like, it's picking the worst of the best, because the Eagles offense is should be a top 5 offense. And if they could continue putting up 34 points a week, it's going to be tough to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a video circulating where Mekhi Becton got out in front of a plane, absolutely tosses a linebacker aside. Like, that's a vicious couple of guards there, because we know Landon Dickerson, he can have a hot streak too, and he can toss some guys around. And Mekhi Becton, like, this is going to be an awesome season to watch these guys. Hopefully Cam Jurgens and Mekhi Becton continue to excel and continue to get better within this offensive line, because it's their first season there. For the other 3, it's well beyond their first seasons, and they know this offensive line. They know what they're doing. They're very well experienced. They're very well versed, and they do a really good job. And Mekhi Becton looked like a really good guard, and hopefully he continues to look that good and continue to even get better. And there's some good things to come. Michael says, if Zach Bond continues to play at this level all year, I hope Howie re-signs him, because as we all know, the philosophy the Eagles have about linebackers. I agree on the Zach Bond. I mean, we talked about it at the start of the season. Zach Bond has a chance to be that Andrew Van Ginkel of last year. And if game 1 was any indication, he had the only sacks for the team. He was all over the field. He made 15 total tackles, 11 solo. Like, he was all over the place. Whenever you were watching that defense, you just saw his jersey number or his name shield constantly within the picture. Like he was all over the place, and hopefully that continues because we knew that some of these linebackers that were being brought in had a really good chance of standing out and becoming like the Van Ginkel of last year, who Vic Fangio was able to scheme perfectly into his defense and make big plays when big plays were needed to be made. And Zach Bond was definitely making those plays. We can't necessarily, hopefully, it seems like Howie's philosophy or the reins on his philosophy were loosened a bit by giving a little bit more power to Fangio to pick some of these players, because after every signing that happened, it was pretty much Vic Fangio had a big say in this. Vic Fangio had a big say in this. This is a Vic Fangio guy. So hopefully he continues to let the reins go a little bit for Fangio to be able to say, let me know what we're doing here. Let me know the dollar amounts. I'll let you know if he's worth it for this defense. And he gives, Fangio an opportunity to make some decisions as well. Because as we can see already, Zach Bond came out there and did some really good things. And Zach Bond was a Vic Fangio guy. And Nakobe Dean, I mean, I don't, whatever happened with Devin White, now all these reports are coming out that, like there was a report out soon before the game that they tried to trade him before roster cuts. Like, is Devin White going to see the field that much? Or like, is this injury kind of like a fake-ish injury, just trying to buy time and figure out what you want to do and maybe put the combo of Bond and Dean out there and see, is this the best combination that we have? Because we didn't like what we saw from White. And now we're sitting here holding the bag on White or trying to find a way to get him out of town. I don't know. Andrew says, I don't know if Dean is an every down linebacker. I would have to tend to agree with Andrew at this point. Bond is probably an every down linebacker. But Dean, and especially with the fragility of Dean, I don't know if I would have him as an every down linebacker yet. But what about White? The Eagles clearly are not seeing something in White that they were hoping they were going to see when they gave him this contract and brought him into this defense.
I still think that Devin White is going to play when healthy. And I think they're going to rotate the three. It's going to be White, it's going to be Dean, it's going to be Bond. They're going to rotate. Looking at the snap now, Bond played 100% of the snaps yesterday. Bond, Blankenship, and Slay played 100%. CJGJ played 99%. He had to come off for a play. Nakobe Dean played 96%. He missed 3 plays. So I think that when Devin White gets back, he's going to play. Now, will it be as a starter? Will it be majority of the reps? I don't know. But I don't think they could give him up again because of the fragility, the injury issues when it comes to Dean. Maybe he's not going to get injured, but you never know. You also don't like Bond had a great game yesterday, but will he have a great game against the Falcons? Like, there's a reason why he's been primarily a special teams guy and an edge type of guy. So that's why I'm not gonna be the one. I'm not trying to be the guy that's gonna throw Dean out. Like, either cut Dean, which they won't because they're paying him a lot of money, or trade him. I don't think that's smart. I would let Dean play once he gets healthy. That's just me.
I agree with you. And Andrew says, like White, you put in more for run stopping. I think there's a world where you can put Dean, you can mix Dean and White into this and find a good balance between the two to A, keep them both healthy, and B, get the most out of both of these guys. So I do believe there is a world where both of these guys can work and where Zach Bond can be potentially your primary linebacker. I mean, that sounds ugly to say that Zach Bond's going to be your primary linebacker, but if he can continue to play with consistency like he did last night on that level, I mean, I would be putting Zach Bond out there at a near 100% clip every night and mixing in Dean and White where situationally it fits and where it makes sense. We know that White is not good in coverage, and maybe you can mask that by not putting him out in situations where you expect him to cover. Dean, I mean, he's a little bit undersized. Is he going to be a guy you put out there for coverage? It's difficult, but there's a lot of moving pieces on that defense, and we've only seen just the start of what a Vic Fangio defense is truly going to be like.
So Dean is really good coming downhill. I don't know if Dean is good going backwards. That's the issue. When he can come downhill, just read it and go. Dean is really, really good. If you have to cover somebody, that's where we might have an issue. He had that one play where he let, I think it was the running back, get across his face, and he couldn't run with him. So that's it. He also has bricks for hands because he should have had a pick six. Because I think a play or two later is when Reed had the 70-yard touchdown, 14-point swing. Like that can't happen. What were your thoughts on Kellen Moore? We haven't really discussed him a lot. I know I mentioned it, like the motion and whatnot. But what were your thoughts on Kellen Moore and the offense? I thought like he had a really good game, I think, calling plays.
Yeah, I think he had a really good game calling plays. I mean, like we said, Jalen Hurts put him in some not so great situations at times. So ultimately, I think he had a good game play calling. I think this offense is going to take some steps over the coming weeks. They have so many weapons to work with. We were already talking about it with Brown's performance, Smith's performance, Goddard's performance, Barkley's performance. Jalen Hurts with his feet, he's 13 for 33 is not a regular Jalen Hurts with his feet stat line. That field probably similarly played some havoc into Jalen Hurts and his confidence to use his feet, and it's the fact that he hadn't really got much true playing time probably played a bit of havoc as well. So I mean, I was happy with the play calling. I thought things looked pretty good. The plays where he schemed players open, some of the touchdowns, like the Barkley touchdown, the Barkley receiving touchdown, and the Brown touchdown as well. Those were great touchdowns. Those were great schemed plays. And using those guys, like seeing AJ Brown be used coming across the middle of the field and catching the ball and then using his yak ability after the play. Like we didn't see that last year. We did not get privileged to see like the AJ Brown touchdown that we got. So I think that he knows what he's got with these guys, and he knows there's so much more to unlock in this offense. I was impressed for game one for both coordinators. I was impressed, and I was happy that that Sirianni was kind of out of the limelight and kind of just pushed aside so that we could see what this team could do and where he wasn't trying to take control over things.
Yeah, it worked for the first week. I don't know if I was as impressed with Vic Fangio. Maybe that his type of defense is kind of just gone by the wayside. And what I mean by that is maybe it's old school, and you kind of need a new school approach. I'm hoping that changes, but like we against with the Dolphins last week against the high-powered offenses, they gave up a bunch of points. His defense did. And I know they had a bunch of injuries, but they were still a pretty good defense. When we can't like be giving up 28 points a game, that definitely cannot happen. So hopefully, as they get more repetition, get more familiar, get healthy. Hopefully the pass rush gets the defensive line starts to get pressure on the quarterback. That'll help things, but who knows? Michael says, is Devin White the new Rashad Penny? As is he going to be deactivated basically all season? No, he's not. He's making way more money than Rashad Penny made, and I think he's a better player than Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny retired this offseason, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that's going to happen. Once his ankle's good to go, I think he's gonna be activated, and he's gonna be on the field. I think he should be on the field. He played a lot. He got a lot of first team reps in camp and in the preseason. Like, I don't think that they would have continually put him out there with the first team if they were planning on getting rid of him, unless he outright asks for his release. I think they're going to keep him. Andrew says, when the defense has everybody healthy, they can be a top 10 defense. I really think they will play better next week, but Maddox playing time will go down a lot and maybe a trade asset. I don't know what you're going to get if you're going to be able to trade him. He was a free agent and made one visit to New Orleans and ended up coming back to Philly. And he did not play well Friday night. And, teams are going to see that on tape. And then why would you trade anything for him? He isn't. I think his playing time will go down once Isaiah Rodgers gets healthy, because then Quinion can go into the slot when they go into dime personnel, and Rodgers can play the outside. So his slot corner snaps will go down. I do think Avonte Maddox should be playing some more safety though. And I know Reed Blankenship had the interception, but they have little to no depth behind Blankenship and CJGJ. And I think Avonte Maddox could be that guy. I know Tristan McCollum went out there and played a little bit. Sidney Brown should be back probably after the bye against Cleveland. Who knows what's going on with James Bradbury? But Maddox should probably be getting some safety reps.
I agree with you on that point. Maddox could be a trade asset if someone runs into like some dire straits at the cornerback position, and how he just, dangles him out there like, hey, I got this guy. But I agree with you. I think he needs to get some safety reps. I think that he can be a guy that can definitely work in a multitude of ways within this defense, but he's not going to be a guy who can be playing 80-90% of the time. He's got to be a guy that's closer to 30-40% of the time, and used in a versatile amount of ways. So it'll be interesting to see how he's used going forward, because I think when Rodgers is healthy, Rodgers should be out there and be a starter. Mitchell should be out there and be a starter, and Slay's obviously a starter. So I think that that they need to find something in Maddox, like a spot for Maddox within that defense. And I think that, they were working on that, and they were finding that throughout the preseason, that he can be a versatile piece, and hopefully Fangio is able to do so. But I would agree with everybody who's been saying he cannot be seeing that much playing time, because he definitely can't. You play this guy 80-90% of the time, he's going to get hurt at some point this season. It's not an if, it's a when. So hopefully they find a way to work him into other aspects of the defense, to be more of a versatile piece that you flex in and out, and take advantage of maybe matchups at certain points.
Not even just getting hurt. He's just not good anymore. He really did not play all that well. Is there any-
We're muted, LJ.
My bad.
All right, we're good.
Accidentally knocked the cord out of the mic. It happens. Technology. I've been having a rough time with technology today. Is there anything we haven't touched base on, haven't discussed that you think we should talk about?
I mean, they let Gainwell return 2 kicks and he averaged 19 yards. Well, 29 on
He shouldn't
one.
have brought out both of them, by the way. Just saying.
Yeah. Like, I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams continue to deal with the kick returns. And I know that Isaiah Rodgers was discussed as a kick returner, so maybe when healthy, he'll be used. But I just don't think there's any reason to see Kenny Gainwell on the field all that much at all, special teams or on offense. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. And it'll be interesting to see how the kick returns go, because it seemed like each team gave it a go to return one, and then they just started booming it.
When Nixon returned that one at the end, that was done by him. I think teams are just going to kick it to the end zone and, let the opposing team start at the 30. I think the only way that will change is if the NFL changes it to the 35, because then that's a big difference because last year it was if it was a touchback, you get the ball at the 25. Going to the 30 is only 5 yards, but if you go from the 25 to the 35, that's kind of a big difference. That's 10 yards. So I do think that teams are just gonna kick. There'll be somebody who's a good returner that'll give it a try here and there, but teams are just gonna kick it through the end zone. And did you notice Braden Mann was kicking off and not Elliott? That was a surprise.
Yeah, that was interesting, and I know that we were going to see different approaches taken with this. Obviously, we know Jake Elliott kicking from there would just boom it through the end zone every time. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how teams manage it, and as we get a full Sunday of games, it'll be really interesting to see. But yeah, this could lead the NFL back to the drawing board on kickoffs and figuring out, okay, how can we force teams, because clearly the way they're lining up is trying to force kick returns, but you need to make it worthwhile for it. And we've seen through 2 games.
Well, I think they're lining up that way because it's less of an injury thing. Because when
Less of
you're
an injury thing as well.
five,
Yeah.
like if you're running from, because you kick off from the 35 and you run full speed, you get a 20-yard head start instead of just a 5-yard head start.
Yep.
That's what could happen. Excuse me. But yeah, the NFL should just do away with kickoffs at this point. Like
it almost feels that way. Like I love to see special teams because they can have an effect and they can have an impact on the game, but they're having the hardest time figuring out how can we limit injuries from these special team situations, and how can we still keep them within the game and keep the game excited, and keep special teams exciting. And it just feels like the NFL's just trying to move pieces around, and it just isn't working for them.
Like if you think about it, Thursday night, the Chiefs Ravens, 2 of the 11 kickoffs were returned. And yesterday, the Eagles Packers, 3 kickoffs were returned. They're not getting that high percent. And again, teams returned it in preseason because why not return in preseason? It's preseason. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, now that the games count for real, teams are just going to kick it through the end zone, not return kicks, get the ball at the 30 and run your offense. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Like, who's going to return? Like, again, the Steelers have Cordarrelle Patterson. He might be inclined to return kicks. Dallas has Turpin. Maybe he will, return something out. So, like, teams that have the specialists, maybe they will come out there and return kicks and see what they can do. But yeah, the Eagles and the Packers were even the Ravens and Chiefs were just like, yeah, just let's go. Let's stop with this farce and just give us the ball at the 30.
Yeah, no, they definitely did. And obviously, one final comment: as with the start of every season, penalties were far too many.
I thought Thursday was worse though with the
Thursday
formations.
Yes, Thursday was definitely worse. But I mean, 17 penalties in a game, that's a lot of penalties. We can argue should some of them been called or not. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I don't think any were overly costly to the game. It's just a lot of penalties, and you don't want to slow the pace of the game down by throwing that many flags. So it'll be really interesting to see. Usually after week 1, you get a lot. You clearly see that there was a discussion head behind the scenes between the NFL and the refs saying, "Okay, guys, here's some examples of things. Let's not call this. Let's call this less. Let's figure this out." And trying to limit.
Well, they always put an emphasis beginning of the season on one specific rule, and this year it's the illegal formation. And like when it was happening to the excuse me, the Ravens left tackle, I think a lot of people brought up Lane Johnson because he has like timed it down to a perfect science of when he can, move. And they thought that would be called on Lane yesterday. And I think he may have only had one called, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what happens going forward, and we'll see what the games look like tomorrow in terms of, the penalty, the amount of penalties that are called.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and even Jason Kelsey chimed in on it on on Twitter, and I shared that with the Edge of Philly people, and he's basically out there saying, when you slow it down and you take it frame by frame, of course this person's coming off, of course this looks like this person's false starting, but that's not necessarily always true. When you're doing it as a referee and you're watching the line of scrimmage and you're trying to watch all 5 people who are lined up there, it's not as simple. It doesn't look that quickly. And he said you go by cadence. So some people, like you say, Lane Johnson, hear a specific point in the cadence where they know the next thing is going to be the snap of the football, and they can get a little bit of maybe an early start. Like, it's really difficult to debate it, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with illegal formation and that type of stuff to based on, at least through Thursday night. I mean, I know we didn't see as much illegal formation on in the Eagles and the Packers game, but clearly it was an emphasis in the early going. So we'll see how things go. But obviously, we always hope that the number of penalties decrease because 17 is a lot. And
I mean, the referee lost.
Exactly. And as fans, we don't want to see all these penalties. Like, even if it's going in your favor, it slows the pace of the game down so much, and it isn't that enjoyable.
So, so again, Eagles 1-0. It's a good start, and I think if there was a team that needed a win this week 1, it was the Eagles after the way that they collapsed at the end of last season. Get that bad taste out their mouth, and we'll see. Hopefully they can clean up the mistakes, to clean up the sloppiness, and Jalen can play a little smarter and not force the ball. So you don't have to force the ball when you have the talent that you have around you. You don't have to force the ball. Hit the open man. Just hit the open man. And I think the one thing we didn't talk about that I want to talk about, he was really good against the blitz. Finally, Packers would bring the blitz, had the blitz beaters, whether it was throwing it to Devontae or AJ quickly, or getting it to Saquon. They finally were able to have some blitz beaters, and that's another staple of the Kellen Moore offense.
Definitely, yeah. He definitely looked better against the blitz. Hopefully that continues, and it's not just this one-time thing. So we'll see where things go. But this was the first week, so for me, I don't want to overreact too much to things. Obviously, you can say there's underreaction, but I definitely don't want to think that they go too far into overreacting. And if we continue to struggle to get pressure, especially against the Atlanta Falcons next week, I'm probably gonna not hit the panic button, but start to say, okay, something needs to be done about this.
If we don't hear Josh,
we got to get pressure.
If we don't hear Josh Sweat or Bryce Huff, I'm hitting the panic button. You're paying Bryce Huff, excuse me. You're paying him $17 million a year. They need to get after the quarterback.
We'll definitely join us next Friday, and we will hit on the our predictions for Atlanta. Honestly, for me, when we did our start of the season prediction, and we both finished with the Eagles at 12-5, I had the Eagles losing this game to the Green Bay Packers. We all know that there is going to be an ugly loss, at least one ugly loss by the Philadelphia Eagles this year. There's usually the ugly loss, and then maybe the week 17, 18 when they start to rest people, where they lose their team they shouldn't lose to, but they do. Atlanta could be the one. Listen, there's people who probably overrate Atlanta, but I mean, I have Atlanta winning the division, but it is a division you win at 9-8. So I think that we have to, kind of relax on that a bit, but I can see a world where Atlanta might be able to get this win. And
Kirk Cousins in prime time.
Kirk Cousins in prime time. I have to also see Kirk Cousins playing in Atlanta and seeing what this offense looks like and seeing what this defense looks like. You got Matt Judon there. You got Kirk Cousins here. You have some things that have changed. New offensive coordinator. There's a lot of things changing in Atlanta. I need to see them actually out there and playing to really make a full to start to put together. Okay, do I have Atlanta really winning this? Philly Mike OG says Kirk Cousins 387, 3 touchdowns and interception. Join us on Friday. We want to see a prediction after you see Atlanta play this weekend. Join us again next Friday and talk to us about what we might see. Andrew says somebody has to win a one-on-one battle on that line when Carter is double teamed. Agreed. Jalen Carter was out there the most of any defensive lineman, and they one of the things when the snap count came out, I said there was clear heavy rotation there because the person who played the most was Carter, and he only played on 76% of defensive snaps. So there's fresh legs out there. You definitely need to be taking advantage of the fact that somebody is drawing a lot of attention. You got to get pressure. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Bryce Huff, somebody has to do it. You can't have Zach Bond being the only one getting sacks and getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. And I did mention how you can see that, especially on the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, Jason Kelsey definitely, you can see the difference. And I don't know, it's tough. It's a tough play to practice because you don't want anybody to get quote unquote hurt. I don't think anybody would get hurt, but how do you practice that? I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see if they could. Honestly, though, like they shouldn't need to do it. Just hand the ball off to Saquon. Like that's what you're paying the guy for. And I'm not saying he takes snaps because obviously taking snaps is hard, big difference. You know, instead of being handed the ball, but you shouldn't have to do the tush push as much. We'll see what happens, but hand the ball off to Saquon if it's 3rd and 1. Let him take care of it. They had to settle for a field goal on that last drive because of the fumbled snap, and if you would have handed the ball off to Saquon, maybe he gets his 4th touchdown, and we wouldn't be sweating out that last drive until Jordan Love got hurt.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So there's definitely some things to work on, and the tush push definitely doesn't look the same. It definitely does not. Michael says, I do not like the new kickoff rule. It's just horrible. I think we're all in agreement. The NFL's probably going to have to do something about it. Or they're going to react, maybe overreact to the fact that the rule isn't maybe working the way they wanted it to. We'll end up seeing on that. Philly might go, gee, Zach Bond. Yeah, we talked about Zach Bond. He had a great game. We hope it continues. It's yet to be seen if this is going to be sustainable. But if he continues to play like this, you play him 100% of snaps, and he's your primary linebacker with some moving in and out of other linebackers. Yeah, and Philly might go, G says, just hand it off. You have a running back who squats 600 pounds. I mean, I agree.
You have a quarterback that does too.
Yeah, you have a quarterback that does too. How and I mean, I don't want to say do away with the brotherly shove, but how important is the brotherly shove to this offense versus how important it was last year? I mean, to me, if you have the right pieces in place, you're paying Jalen Hurts to be a quarterback, you're paying Saquon Barkley to be a running back. Maybe you hand the ball. Like, I mean, it's the same conundrum that Baltimore's dealing with why aren't you handing the ball off more to Derrick Henry? Like, it's a similar conundrum there, except for, Saquon Barkley had 24 carries. So Saquon Barkley did get a lot of carries, but like, how often do you have to use a tush push, and when do you need to use it? And they do continue to use it in the instances where it makes sense, but does it make sense to continue to use it if it's just not looking good and just not working out?
All right, so again, the Eagles come away with the 34-29 victory. It was a win, and it's a good step in the right direction for the season, hopefully. Week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, a true home game at Lincoln Financial Field. Michael says, how we constructed the Eagles team should just outscore the opponent and have the Eagles defense just be okay and bend but not break. So one thing Hugh Douglas says on the midday show on WIP is defense is a luxury. And that's kind of where the NFL is headed. There are good teams that have good defenses out there. The Ravens are a good defense. The Chiefs have a good defense. The Niners have a good defense. But the game is geared towards the offense. So that's why all the money went to the offense pretty much. Yeah, they gave CJGJ a little bit of coin. And Bryce Huff some, but it's an offensive league. So if you can make 1 or 2 stops a game, you should be able to win. If you average 28 points a game, and your defense, all you need your defense to do is give up 20 points a game, or whatever it is, and you should be able to win more than you lose.
Yeah, no, I agree on that point. This is a pass friendly league. This is an offensive friendly league. You just need your defense to make a stop when you need to make a stop, make a play, when you need to make a play, get that interception, that timely interception or fumble. So I agree. You aim to make your offense the absolute best that you can, and then put just enough in place for the defense to be just okay. And hopefully you have the right defensive coordinator that can position your defense in a way to make the plays and make the right things happen. So I agree with Michael. I agree with you, LJ.
All right. So before we finish off, I'll look at the schedule of games for tomorrow. Pick one game that stands out to you, Connor. And one game that you're going to, the Eagles got their win already. We can come in and watch Red Zone all day, Sunday Ticket, whatever it is. If you could pick one game to watch and focus in on, what game would that be?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, this is an offensive friendly league. This is an offensive friendly league. You just need your defense to make a stop when you need to make a play, make a play, get that interception, that timely interception or fumble. So I agree. You aim to make your offense the absolute best that you can, and then put just enough in place for the defense to be just okay and bend but not break. So If I was picking one for tomorrow, I think I'm focusing in on that Houston and Indianapolis game. I mean, there's so much hype to the Houston Texans, it's unreal. So I want to see, can they repeat? What are they going to do? Let's see, can CJ Stroud repeat such a crazy rookie season? And can that offense can that whole team continue to take that step forward that's necessary for Indianapolis? I mean, I think Indy can be really good this year. Anthony Richardson needs to live up to the hype that he came into. He got injured prematurely last year. Jonathan Taylor was only half healthy. They now have A.D. Mitchell in the building. They have a pretty solid defense. It's going to be a really interesting game because I think that can really set the showdown for the AFC South for the rest of the year. Because if Indianapolis can pull off that upset against Houston, that makes the AFC South so much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes out on Houston and Indy because I think Indy is a team that isn't talked about enough. And I think Houston's a team that's talked about just so much, rightfully so because of what they did last year, but could also be a team that could potentially be a little overrated.
Yeah, I can see that. That should be a good game. Mine's the Rams and the Lions, two teams in the NFC, two teams that should be could potentially be in contention for the NFC. So that's a big matchup. Matt Stafford going back to Detroit, Jared Goff facing the team that he got drafted number 1 overall to, and a rematch of the wild card game last year. So I'm definitely, and obviously it's a standalone game because it's a Sunday nighter, but I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on the Rams and the Lions game. So yeah.
My second game was the Rams and Lions. So that's definitely going to be a good game too because the Lions are a team that was that's highly touted, highly talked about. So like that's a team like a lot of people have them winning the Super Bowl or in the Super Bowl. So or a lot of people analysts do. So I'll be interested to see can the Lions live up to the hype? Can they beat? They're a really good team. Can they do it? Because Jared Goff, maybe, we might have some question marks there. I know you have question marks about Dan Campbell and stuff. So, there's some things that are there, the framework that's there to, maybe be that the Lions don't have what it takes to get there. So it'll be interesting to watch.
I have the Eagles Lions meeting in the NFC Championship game. So it could be a big game. And again, you want to get as many conference wins. That's why I was mad that the Eagles Packers game was in Brazil. It's a conference game, a big game. Like that should have been in, and the Eagles were supposed to be the home team for that. It should have been in Philly at the Link. Like so, like being able to stack wins against conference opponent, not division opponents, but conference opponents. That's why the Falcons game is going to be big. The Saints game, they get 3. The Eagles have 3 straight NFC South opponents coming up now. Let's get these wins and stack these wins so that you can and build your conference record to be good because that could potentially be a tiebreaker down the road for the number 1 seed. Obviously, that's way, way, way down the road, but it's definitely something to look to. All right, the Eagles are 1-0, defeating the Green Bay Packers 34-29, in Brazil. And they have the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. Jason Kelce comes back to town with ESPN. Nick Foles retires a Philadelphia Eagle. We'll see if the Eagles potentially may retire the number 9 jersey. You never know. Nobody's worn it since. But we will be back next.
What's another retired number? Why not?
They are running out of numbers. They're going to have to go to triple digits soon. Let's be real. But we will be back on Friday with our preview of the Eagles-Falcons Monday night game. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRoll54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.